Hey, you kid, get in here.
Who, me?
Yeah, you. We got a lot of mysteries on our hands and we need to discuss them. Are you ready?
Oh, gosh, I think I am.
Here's the deal, kid. I want you to talk about mysteries every week, and I'll give you $5 plus expenses.
$5? But my rent is $35 a week.
You press a hard bargain. It's $4, no expenses.
Oh, I'll take it. What do I have to do? Take pictures of mysteries?
Not any pictures, terrible pictures, out of focus pictures. I'd go so far as to call them blurry photos.
Done!
Hello and welcome to Blurry Photos.
What's up, everybody? I'm David Flora.
And I'm Dave Stecco.
Welcome to another episode.
A very special episode.
We got a great episode going, yeah.
But we're not like a very special, like none of us got touched by a gym teacher.
Right.
We didn't try cigarettes.
You're not going to learn anything about drugs. You might learn something about drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can only promise that some of you will jump out of a window after this.
Yeah, but you know, it only as a cautionary tale. You'll be in the hospital and you'll be able to explain to all your peers what a dumb person you were.
Gosh. And then you'll go on to semi-success.
That's right. But
and take your clothes off. Isn't that the same person?
I don't know.
Wasn't she in Showgirls?
Oh, I don't.
Whatever.
Hey, how much Saved by the Bell do you hang on me? Do I have that look about me? No. The sweet drug that we're going to expose you to is one Mr. Kenneth Hite.
Oh boy,
we have a guest today. Our first guest ever.
It's our first guest. It's our first interview episode, and this isn't even with the janky over the airwaves kind of thing. Ken is in this room right now talking to us.
Yep, he's breathing our air.
We had to get an extra
really starting
mic.
To piss me off the way he's breathing all our air.
This thing's a premium.
You don't want it breathe, don't have it floating around.
Lock your air down, sir. Yeah. It's just going all over the place.
So, Ken, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh man, it's our pleasure.
Now, Ken, you are quite an accomplished author, as well as being quite the moving force in the role-playing games community. Why don't you go ahead and tell us some of your accomplishments?
Well, I've been writing mostly role-playing games as a full-time writer for the last 20-odd years. I've wrote Trail of Cthulhu and Night's Black Agents for Pelgrane Press. I wrote a bunch of World of Darkness, Old World of Darkness, and New World of Darkness material for White Wolf. I've written GURPS Alternate Earths, GURPS Infinite Worlds, 2 editions of GURPS Horror.
Some Weird World?
Some
Weird War?
Weird War 2. GURPS
Yeah.
Weird War. GURPS World War II, Weird War 2. To use its full frog strangling title.
And who wouldn't?
If you hate yourself,
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead,
you could
sure,
do that.
why not? And I've also written a column for about 10 years in Pyramid Magazine that was called Suppressed Transmissions, which is sort of the Blurry Photos, only without the photos.
Nice. It's
Right.
just so blurry.
Just the transmissions.
And it's hard because you did a really good job of writing in Irish accents to your column. I mean, it really is pretty much our podcast writ.
Yeah, well, that's the goal, right? Was to prefigure you guys, and then, you know.
Yeah, well, we didn't have a choice on account of our illiteracy. We just had to go straight for recording.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, you life gives you lemons. Go around and beg someone for water and sugar. That's
right.
Yeah.
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about Nazis and the occult, which we've had a lot of podcasts in the past that have kind of ended up here a little bit.
Yeah, lots of stuff touches the old Nazi world, and Ken actually has a book coming out in about a week. I hope everything goes well with this episode. That statement is true. But coming out on June 18th, the Nazi Occult by Osprey Press, right?
From the military history publishers, Osprey Publishing. They have something like 1,000 titles at backstock. Most of them things like Italian Forces of the Eastern Front, 1942 to 1944.
I read that in junior high.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And they've just got a new line of
The myth one?
of myth and adventures.
Oh man, that one looks so cool.
And
I
so
saw that.
the Osprey Dark, which this is either the first or the second book in the series, depending on how you read it. Nazi Occult is sort of a kickoff for that part of the sort of the myth and adventures. So they're moving from pure history into things that history has been used for entertainment purposes.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's a whole book on Thor. They got a book on Horus and Set coming out. I saw this on the website. It looks pretty freaking cool.
It's pretty great. They got a book on Dragon Slayers that's just come out. Lots of good stuff.
And I don't know if people understand how much you love Thor. flora.
Thor's one of my faves. Yeah,
I'm pretty into Thor. Pretty into Thor.
I don't want to sound gay or nothing. But
Thor's pretty sweet.
awesome.
So let's dive in. We did some research on this this week, and I was most impressed by like Block 0, Hitler, pretty ambivalent to the occult.
Yeah, as far as anyone knows, and obviously we have only his written work and recordings of his speeches and things like that to go on, he really didn't buy any of it. He believed in what's called the Horbegierian theory of astronomy, which is crank science, but not technically mysticism. It's just wrong. And I think he mostly just did it because it sort of appealed to his sense of the operatic, his notion that the world ought to be like that. But for example, his race prejudice was not necessarily mystical so much as it was, his understanding of Darwin and how evolution worked.
More reason-based, right?
Yeah, it was scientific and it was philosophical. His his notions of Nietzsche and Schopenhauer also drove him towards those kind of understandings, as well as his political belief that the Jews were behind the parties that he hated, and so therefore take them out. You take out the support of those parties. But he didn't have an occult sensibility. He hated. He made fun of astrologers. He didn't believe in Atlantis, or if he did, he accepted it as a historical event that had no meaning in the modern era. He didn't believe in reincarnation or any of that. He was a relatively pragmatic street fighting guy who didn't have any particularly occult tendencies.
Just your regular button down genocidal lunatic.
Exactly. Yes. But the thing you have to remember is he's not the only guy in the milieu, and he's not the only guy in the Nazi Party.
Right.
So the Nazi movement, by contrast to Hitler, comes out of a broader mystical, or at least romantic conception of German nationhood and German race consciousness. And that's something that every culture was developing in the 19th century, right? You had the British Folklore Society going around and finding their old British folklore and talking about how the Saxons and the Normans were the two strands that made Britain great. And you had the Russians rediscovering their own folk epics. You had Elias Lönnrot basically sort of cobbling together the Kalevala from all of Finland's various epic poem tradition. Every culture in Europe was developing this same sort of mystical notion of itself as a nation.
And this was in the mid to late 30s?
This was in the 19th century. And this 19th century notion then gets driven farther in Germany because Germany is so late becoming a nation. It doesn't become a unified country until 1871. And so their nationalism has to be sort of one louder and one more excitable to get everyone's attention. And at the same time that these German nationalist beliefs are coming in, you're having a lot of other occult beliefs that are pouring into popular culture all over the Western world. Notions of Theosophy, the notion that there are ancient races that died and were replaced by other races. The notion, for example, that the Aryan race is the root race of mankind is not something that Hitler came up with, or even Himmler. It's something that was come up with as part of Theosophy, the mystical sort of half Hinduism, half Darwinism that Madam Blavatsky invented in the 1850s. And so these sorts of intellectual currents are sort of churning around, along with a lot of apocalyptic beliefs coming out of the Russian, very far west Russia in the Baltic states, a lot of apocalypticism of the sort that gave rise to the Protocols of the Elders of Zion and other sorts of notions of great contests of races at the end of time.
And a lot of this, like you said, this 19th century investigation of that is going to come back around again. Like you mentioned, Finland and the Kavala, there's going to be a huge part that the Nazis are very directly interested in that. All
Absolutely.
of that research that was done, 100, 150 years before is going to come right back around again as far as being one of their focuses.
Right. Yeah. The Nazis, not to necessarily jump the gun, but the Nazis obviously tried to put these sorts of romantic and nationalist notions on a scientific basis. Again, science is overstating what actually happened, but they believed that it was a scientific basis because they believed that there could be a science of, for example, alphabets, and that if you could sort of map the evolutionary tree of alphabets, it would all come back to German runes. And therefore, every German rune must have a coded nest of meanings, and that this coded nest of meanings again, leaving all mysticism out of it, this coded nest of meanings would let you reconstruct what ancient proto-Germanic life must have been like for the Aryan master race when it descended down out of the glaciers or wherever. And again, and then once you start tacking on mysticism, the notion that runes are magical, the runes were given to us by Odin, that the runes channel some sort of arcane or occult power, that's when you start getting the birth of occult Nazism.
So if Hitler, not really interested in it.
Yeah.
So how did the Nazi Party get into that area then? Obviously, Hitler's got a lot of people under him. How did the Nazi Party and the SS start shifting into that area of research?
Well, the occultism predates the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party began as the workers' outreach group of a group of rich Freemasons who called themselves the Thule Bruderschaft.
Rich Freemasons? How could that go wrong?
Right. Or the Thule Gesellschaft, technically. And the Thule Gesellschaft, or Thule Society, were people who were descended from a pre-World War I Masonic order that was, as Masonic orders were, having fights with all the other Masonic orders as to who was the most ancient and most descended from the Templars.
I heard Mexico City had a really sweet crew at that time.
Oh, yeah. They rolled. But the Thule guys were a splinter from an older group called the Armanenschaft. The Armanen were the name given by these rune scholars to the ancient Aryan magical priesthood. And so if you are the Armanenschaft, you are the descendants of the ancient Aryan priest lords, and therefore you're saying, because we're so mystical, we should run Germany, basically.
Right.
Yeah, my ancestors were all priests and warriors too. They had warriors in there too.
We were making lightning guns and flying through the air. We saw super hammers. So yeah, this is pretty much.
I don't know what you're doing with your Thule society too. You are
We've
fake.
earned this.
This isn't a blood.
If you think you have earned it, then maybe you should have a workers' auxiliary like we have. An awesome one.
Nine.
So the Thule Society, because they were rich guys and they were very connected to the Masonic movement especially in Munich, they had strong connections into the bourgeois society and into sort of the old rich, not necessarily the old aristocracy, but some of the aristocracy of Bavaria. But what they didn't have was any connection to the working class. And they
Who wants that?
Well, since they had just
dirty.
gone through a communist revolution in Bavaria.
Pretty much everybody.
Okay.
During which something like 5 or 6 of their top men were executed by the communists.
Yeah.
They felt that perhaps to prevent such an untoward occasion happening again, they should hook themselves up with a working class auxiliary, basically.
Put on your hip boots, friend. It's time to get dirty with the people.
That's right. Yes, you as a dentist, you have touched their mouths. You must go among them.
May I
Tell
borrow
us
your?
what it's like.
What is that hitty thing? Oh, a hammer. That's right. Oh, may I touch, please?
It's not a ceremonial hammer. It actually hits things.
Yeah, never mind. I don't need to touch it.
No, I'm over it. So they sent a guy named Anton Drexler to recruit working class.
Great James Bond villain name.
Oh, I was thinking Portland Trailblazers.
It could be either.
Yeah.
Just because the guy plays for the Trailblazers doesn't mean he can't be a James Bond villain.
Yeah.
Although Anton the Glide Drexler doesn't flow as well.
Well, again, that could be any number of different career paths open to
That's true.
Anton the Glide Drexler.
Thanks, Internet. No thanks.
Yeah. So he's sent down to sort of start a workers' auxiliary, and Adolf Hitler, who at the time was a unemployed former corporal in the German army, is picking up a couple of nickels as a army spy who goes around and goes to political meetings and then goes back and tells the army if any of them are dangerous. Again, given that the communists just took over the place and had a bunch of people executed, the army would like to not see that happen again.
Yeah.
Hitler goes to the meeting of this National Socialist Party and says, "Oh, these guys, they know what's going on.
They're getting
Also,
it.
there's only 50 of them. I think I could take over." And so Hitler basically sort of stops sending reports back to the army and takes over the workers' auxiliary, the Thule Gesellschaft. And because it, again, is the one that is actually doing anything with the vast majority of people in Munich, that's what gets all the power. And the Thule Gesellschaft rapidly sort of recedes into the backdrop as Germany becomes once again a mass democracy in which mass movements are important, not a bunch of nerds in tailcoats.
Stupid nerds in tailcoats.
Trying
Won't
to-
you ever learn?
Trying to bring that back, by the way.
Yeah. We're getting there
Tailcoat's coming back.
any day now. You know what? Handlebar mustaches. That's the canary in your coal mine right there.
That's right. That's the next step. We turn
Bowler
around.
hats.
And
Hipsters.
once they start eating an entire ox at dinner like Diamond Jim Brady.
Exactly.
Diamond Jim.
Oh man, yeah, artisanal beers
Yep.
and handlebar mustaches.
That's right.
You've been warned, society.
Yeah, you thought the Civil War was bad last time.
Oh man, I think that if it's at the hands of hipsters, it will be delightfully brief.
It'll be
this
locally
time.
sourced.
Nice.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna have fixie rifles.
Right. Well, that's what they had, right?
Yeah.
Those fancy breech-loading repeaters were for losers. Everyone had
Yeah.
rifles with no gears.
Don't want them. No thanks.
You mean you have to use your hands? That's like a baby's toy.
Oh man, what is that? Back to the Future?
2.
Nice. Well played. So now we've got Hitler. He's got himself a people's movement.
He's got himself 50 people.
He's got a groundswell.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And into that burgeoning Nazi party comes Heinrich Himmler. And Heinrich Himmler is bug f***. He is crazy.
Yeah.
He believes in everything and twice on Tuesdays. He believes in reincarnation. He believes in clairvoyance. He believes in Atlantis. He believes in rune magic. He believes in Thor. He believes in magic hammers. He believes in super weapons. You name it, Himmler believes in it.
Now, let me ask you this. Do you know how he came to all these beliefs? Because he was raised Catholic, right?
He was raised Catholic, but he very rapidly... I think part of it was World War I sort of knocked a lot of people out of their old religious beliefs.
Yeah, I think there was actually a cloud over Europe that says, "Where's your God now?" for about 10 years.
Yeah, and also
And it was mustard
a
gas,
lot of
too.
people who are raised Catholic, even in 19th century Germany, react badly to that kind of moral instruction and say, your morals are crazy. I'd like the morals where I can do anything I want.
Yeah.
And so Himmler, one of those type of guys, he is at the same time exploring Buddhism and other Eastern religions. He's reading Hinduism, works of popular Hinduism that have been translated into German. He's part of a back to the land movement called the Artemannen, which is not immediately related to the Armannen, but is the same sort of... It's like Boy Scouts if part of scouting was to go and kill Slavs. It's that kind of,
Wow.
back to the land movement.
Well, it isn't.
Not in America.
Okay.
You've got
all
so many badges you've earned. So he was basically just grasping straws at that point. He's just looking for something to latch on
he's
to.
looking for. He's very much your sort of new age personality, except it's the old new age, and he's just looking for everything.
Yeah,
and
anything that he can...
if there had been UFOs, he would have been into UFOs. If there had been Sasquatch, he would have been into Sasquatch. Himmler was just that kind of guy, the guy who knows that what he was taught is wrong, but because that was wrong, everything that it said was wrong must be right. And that's why he's a vegetarian. That's why he's believing in Atlantis and all kinds of other crazy things. That's why he's, willing to commit mass murder to further his political goals. All of that stems out of basically his rejection of his upbringing and then desperately trying to grab a hold of anything that he can believe in to fill that void.
Right, yeah.
Interesting. And because he's not particularly bright, he never sort of synthesizes it or picks one because there's always a shinier pebble in the road, right?
So in this political odd couple, how do you get these two to be roommates? you got a Hitler who don't believe nothing.
Do not cross this line. I have drawn a line down the middle
And
of
then
the
you've
room.
got Himmler with his 1930s version of "I Want to Believe" T-shirt on.
Ich will belieben.
So how
Did you read my peanut butter?
how does those
Wollen glauben.
that was mine?
Nine.
Hitler's messy and Himmler's neat. Hilarious. Now, what
That's a sitcom
happened
waiting
is,
to
of course,
happen.
they both believed in this myth of, literally the myth of the 20th century, as Alfred Rosenberg's book called it, the notion that under the leadership of an inspired elite, the Aryan humanity could rise up and recreate itself. And Aryan humanity is, for the Germans, originally identical to the German nation, but as they start sort of looking at things in a more, one hesitates to say spiritual, but more mystical bent, they say, well, the Norwegians are Aryan and the Flemish are Aryan, and then it becomes a matter of finding Aryans who you can say, oh, look, it's a piece of lost Aryan humanity, and we've added it to our to our collection, and we are going to be able to build
We've
the new
assimilated.
race basically genetically on the body of the from the body of the old race. And again, remember, part of what gets Himmler into raising chickens and all this back to the land stuff is the notion of genetic purity, of animal husbandry, of breeding animals back to their original purer form instead of the contemptible form that processed food and the Jews have caused.
So Himmler's working towards lightning chickens.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
He's looking for the lightning chicken.
A lot of the stuff sounds like some crap that's going on still today. You know what I mean? I mean, there's the whole organic stuff that's going on, and that caveman diet that's coming out now.
Yeah, I mean, the
know?
thing is that, there's only a limited number of ways that anyone can react, right?
Yeah.
And
there's never
crazy is crazy. So
Right.
you're just going to have various flavors of unorthodox are all going to sort of look the same, especially when you're talking about the fact that the orthodoxy still pretty much looks like it did in 1930. We haven't, abandoned notions of not mass murdering people.
Yeah, there's no vaccine for being disenfranchised and weird.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so far the vaccine is cable television, and they didn't have that in the 30s. So what Hitler and Himmler have in common is this notion of rebuilding an Aryan nation, a nation unified by blood, of unified genetic type, that it's all going to be on the same side, not going to be arguing about whether or not to go to war with France, not going to be bickering about, the level of welfare payments.
Details.
Because everyone's going to understand that they are going to be led by the sort of natural leaders that will emerge from this Aryan collective. And the myth of the 20th century is that the swastika will rise, the Aryan nation will rise, and destroy the under people who are all around the Aryan nation.
Yes.
And that is what Himmler and Hitler both believe. Hitler believes it because he believes it scientifically, he believes it politically, and because he really, really hates people who are better dressed and more successful than him.
So could you hear, I don't know if the listeners could hear the asterisk after scientifically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, keep in mind, this is 1922. This is not now. They don't have DNA. They don't have, Louis Leakey has not dug up any fossils in Africa.
Yeah.
Nobody knows anything. Literally, the oldest human remains that they know about are Neanderthals. So as far as they know, humanity was born in Germany, right?
Yeah.
They don't have any understanding of our modern notions of mitochondrial DNA or any of that. The notion of biological racism is scientific. It's scientifically accepted in the 1920s. Ernst Haeckel, who is Darwin's prime disciple, he's like the Richard Dawkins of the 1920s, is a thoroughgoing racial, determinist. The book that Scopes is tried for in the Scopes trial, the book that he's teaching evolution out of in Tennessee, is a book that talks about the evolution of the various human races.
Oh.
Yeah. And
Also, Heckle, a real jerk at shows,
yeah, right. Yeah.
sitting in the audience.
Sitting there making fun of comedians.
Yeah, you guys suck.
Yeah.
Get off the stage.
Your understanding of biological theory is purely substandard. You're barely evolved. You're a lungfish.
Nice joke, Madres.
Yeah, and again, I don't know that Haeckel had any mystical underpinning, because as far as he was concerned, he was just applying Darwin.
Yeah.
But this is what scientific reasoning meant in the 1920s and 1930s. There were a tiny fraction of American anthropologists had begun to question this based on being from a population of many, many different races who were all being raised in general prosperity. And they said, oh, look at this. Here's what causes Italian men to be short and have a different skull arrangement is they're malnourished. If you raise them in America, where everyone's eating to repletion, looks like they're like everybody else. There are no biological differences between races. And so, but this is something that is being, just barely understood at the fringes of anthropology when Hitler is picking up all of his stuff. I mean, Hitler moves to Vienna the year that Franz Boas does those skull experiments. And so by the time Franz Boas is published, Hitler is, he's all past it.
Yeah.
I'm over this.
And
Thank God I got out of there without learning that important fact. That was close.
yeah, and again, racial anthropology survives the war. It's Carlton Kuhn, who was one of the top physical anthropologists, was a racial anthropologist, and he was publishing in the 60s. So I don't particularly mind being unfair to Hitler, but you are being unfair to Hitler when you say he should have known better. No one knew better in 19.
And that's a hard thing to
right?
remember.
Yeah.
Is the not only the political context, but you just like you said, the scientific context of the globe of the state of human knowledge at the time.
Yeah.
Which is a lot easier to imagine when you think about the Middle Ages or or Egypt. Like it's easy for us to contextualize a different scientific knowledge, but these guys have trucks and airplanes.
Mm-hmm, right.
How do they not see the world? Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's hard to remember. Like,
and then it's certainly they do let their racial notions drive them into things that even in 1920 were crazy. Certainly, Atlantis, clairvoyance, chasing all the good physicists out of your country before you begin the atom bomb project. Lots of stuff like that. But in terms of Hitler's belief in extirpating submen, that to him was not a magical belief, even though to us, we look back on it and say, well, that's just nonsense. That's got to have a mystical component to it.
For him, that was just a very rational,
that's just a response.
Science has taught us the following.
Right, yes. So the survival of the fittest, and if you want to, have more wolves, you've got to let them kill the deer.
Yeah. The deer being about 14 million people.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you mind going through just a little bit of the root races that you talked about, and Aryan being, what is it, the seventh?
The fifth.
Fifth,
okay. The fifth race is the Aryans, and that's who modern day humanity is descended from, is the Aryans. Before the Aryans, there are the Atlanteans. Mm-hmm. Before the Atlanteans, there are the Lemurians.
Okay.
And before the Lemurians, there are the Hyperboreans.
Right.
And before the Hyperboreans, there is, I believe...
Ewoks.
Yes, the Ewoks. I think it's the Polarians. I forget who it is that's before the Hyperboreans, but they are a race that doesn't even have matter, right? And so
they're just energy?
They're just energy beings.
Interesting.
And as the races evolve, they move away from that and down to what we are. So the Atlanteans were giants. And the Lemurians were less humanoid giants. They had one eye.
Oh, the Favoyrans.
Right. And they were, I think, born from eggs, not from mammalian reproduction. And so it's this sort of notion of evolution that has been applied to mystical belief.
Yeah.
Because Blavatsky is selling her, particular brand of snake oil during a time when evolution is the hot stuff. Just like if you pick a book down off the New Age shelves, it's going to have the word quantum somewhere in it.
Yeah, vibrations.
Right? Yeah.
Bashar.
Cetacean transformation. Join us, Ken. Join us.
And one of the things that you have to remember about Theosophy is that the Semitic race, subrace, is a offshoot of the fourth root race, not the fifth root race. So the Semitic root race, the Turanian, the Semitic race, the Turanian race, and I forget what they called the American Indians, but they're another subrace.
Huh.
And so they are a fourth root race people, not a fifth root race people. So fifth root race people are better because they're more evolved. And so to the Theosophists, the Jews are literally cavemen in the sense, right? They're the previous race, and so they're not human.
Well, my question to that is then, I thought the plan was to functionally reverse engineer this watering down of the Aryan bloodline to get back to these purer versions. Mm-hmm. And that's not the previous races. It's simply just the Aryan fifth race.
It's the Aryan fifth root race.
Is the top? Okay,
right.
Okay, I see.
It's weird.
Each root race degenerates, and along its course of degeneration, it spawns off the next root race that's going to sort of carry forward the sort of the spark of life or the engine of creativity or whatever it is that they carry forward. And so when the fourth root race is just about to give up the ghost, it spawns the fifth root race. And the fifth root race is the Aryans, and I forget who spawned them specifically, the Toltecs or something.
And that wouldn't make them more pure just because they were older.
Right. Because they're a degenerate version of the older fourth root race.
Gotcha.
So trying to get back
How
to
did they get anything done?
Well, I mean, the thing is, when you write it all out, then you can sell it as a 3-volume set, and
right.
And get other people to pay for your hotel bills.
Yeah,
that's the goal, right?
There you go. Truth.
So they would consider just a being of pure energy to be just the lowest of the low.
No, because the thing is that everyone's version of Theosophy starts going bananas, right? There's huge.
I don't know why.
Yeah, you'd think with a simple logical cosmology like that, everyone would just go ahead. But there's schisms and arguments and faction fighting within Theosophy. First over whether or not Madam Blavatsky faked the letters from the secret masters that she found miraculously in her study
Spoiler
table.
alert.
For those listening at home, see if you can guess whether she faked letters from the secret masters of Tibet. Answer will be revealed in a future podcast.
That's right. We'll let people know that. That's right.
Send in your guess.
Two things you get to reveal: the winner of the Miss Cryptid Contest and whether or not Madam Blavatsky made up the letters.
Made up the Mahatma letters.
Every time you say her name, though, I picture that the old crone fortune teller, with the headband and the big hook nose. And
yeah, nope. Hitler took care of those two.
Yeah.
Just helping you out every time. So anyway, so among the various sort of splinter movements, you start getting people who are saying, well, if the initial energy race came down from the stars, they're really the best race. And the process of going deeper into the material is actually damaging us entirely. And I think that it is that sort of Manichaean notion of Theosophy that inspired a guy named George Lanz, who later called himself George Lanz von Liebenfels, because you have to add a von to your name
you
if you're
can,
going to get anywhere in Germany.
I was going to say also, Lanz. Yeah, this is awfully bland. What can I make? Von Liebenfels. Yeah.
And speaking of people
that name will get me laid.
ladies loves the Liebenfels, if you know what I mean.
That's right. Liebenfeld.
And in fact, that's why he got thrown out of the Cistercian monastery.
Just for
into the
bumping up.
Cetacean monastery.
Well,
Just for bumping up his name?
No, for reaching out and touching the ladies with his Liebenfels.
Nice.
Yes. Or for the practice of physical love, as it was called. So it may have been goats or young boys. We don't know.
Wow. Okay.
Again,
I don't like going by the term rapist. I like physical touch.
Yeah, I was engaging in acts of physical love.
Physical love.
Yeah, so that's my crime. I love to
I'm a
love.
physical love technician.
if that is a crime, then look at that.
No, seriously, it's okay. It's a crime. I know this now.
Yes.
I know now.
And whether it's a crime or not, it's not allowed in a Cistercian monastery.
No.
So he is bounced. But while in the Cistercian monastery, he'd been an excellent language student, and so he was reading a lot of works of Aramaic and ancient Greek that were not particularly part of the intellectual, climate of 19th century Germany. And as you do when you read Herodotus, you run across an awful lot of stuff that Herodotus talked about that doesn't make it into the history books because it's crazy.
Right, and that's why when I read Herodotus, I you just take it with a grain of salt.
That's right.
As
Exactly.
Everybody
It's
knows.
just the wisest
Everybody
thing.
knows, right.
Or he reads works by Gnostic philosophers that the church, does not approve of.
Right.
But they got to keep them around in a know your enemy kind of a way.
Yeah.
But a lot of them talk about beings of light coming down and inseminating human people. The notion that the angels have interbred with people to make the Nephilim. These kinds of beliefs.
We got to do an episode on that.
Are core aspects of Gnosticism. And so Lanz sort of takes a Gnostic reading of Theosophy and says there was an electrical race, a star-born electrical race that came to Earth and foolishly engaged in the act of physical love with the mud people that lived on the Earth. And as a result, you got
Behold our
pretty
magnificence. We have come unto thee.
Show us your mud boobs.
Now take your skirts off.
Do it slower. Yeah. Slower. We're electrical beings.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right,
So he wrote a book called Theozoology, which is about what it sounds like it's about. And in that book, he talks about the sort of spiritual sparks, the remnants of the electrical aliens who are kept primarily in the first and best race of man, which is, of course, the Nordics. And so the goal that he suggested is you should basically kill off everyone who's so mud people as to be completely unredeemable. They're just not going to help.
Yeah, they're just slowing us
But
down.
with people who are sort of maybe 40% mud people, you can breed those people back up, and eventually you can have a whole country full of electrical aliens again, and then bang, zoom, sky's the limit.
Yeah. Then
Nobody gets kicked out of a Cistercian monastery.
Then I'll kick you out
again. But Liebenfels becomes a really big sort of mover in the German occult movement, starting around 1904 is when I think he publishes Theosophy. And then 1908, he starts something called the Order of the New Templars and starts waving swastika flags around, because the swastika is the sole symbol of the Aryan race. Guido von List, who sort of created magical rune theory after going blind and realizing that while blind he could see the truth far better than he could.
Not after realizing that while blind he still has to pay bills.
He may also have realized that. But he was blind as a result of an operation for cataracts. And then when his vision cleared up, he could sort of come out and say, I've had a vision. Here's what the runes are. And then he submitted his rune theories to, I think, the Vienna University. And they sort of sent him a, thanks for your submission. We have thrown it away.
Yeah.
Letter. But we threw it away not in a respectful way. Oh, no.
We always value new inputs and ideas. Yours was not one of those.
Yes. Your ideas were neither new nor ideas. So
I
we
award you
them.
no points, and God have mercy on your soul.
But the bigwigs in Vienna, talking down to the little man, became a big political football in these nationalist movements. And so rune magic became the sort of thing you believed in if you were on side with German nationalism. And that is where that sort of strain of it, begins to filter through. And so by the time you got to the Thule Gesellschaft, they've got their rune magic is just as big a part of them as Freemasonry or any of the other older magic that they would have gotten from their own sort of quasi-Masonic or similarly occult tradition.
Yeah.
See, like the thing that is terrifying about this is that I think there's this fundamental belief that everything was humming along normally. Hitler shows up and he's just the most magic orator on earth, and suddenly everyone in 2 weeks period is like, yeah, we'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And it's more terrifying to see that, just like you said, this started hundreds of years in advance of this happening, that there were so many slow changes and forces on these people and that kind of led to this. And it's spookier because of that weird glacial pace that's how things happen. And I think it's easy to think, being born after the war was over, that, oh no, it just cropped up like a weed. One guy shouts at a bunch of people, they all agree to do it, and then once that guy dies, it's over again. Like that. This is a lot almost more scary in that sense, that there is a lot of sociology.
I have
to
a
it.
theory on that, because by the time you get to that point in your history classes in high school, it's like the end of the year. Nobody's paying attention. You got to cram everything in, so they skip it. No, that's not a real theory. I'm just saying.
As I was saying this, I decided to submit it to the Vienna University.
Send your emails to
That's
Vienna University.
I think it's because the schools are taught by submen, mud people, if you will.
Yes, rise up! oh, damn it! Oh, dang!
Let's just make sausages. Oh,
right.
had to make that joke.
Yeah. Only if you're going camping. Snuggaballs and
Snuggleball, if you're
Vienna
in
sausages.
Louisiana bio.
Out near Boy Scout troop, we're killing Slavs and enjoying a Vienna sausage now and again.
Right.
All ties together.
There's nothing we like more than referencing our own past episodes. So now we've got a stage set. We've got a bunch of people with this belief system that are all working. Now they're getting included into the German government.
Yeah.
And this is where the wheels start to fall off the wagon.
Or spin around really fast, whichever it is.
Yeah.
And when Himmler becomes Reichsfuhrer SS, when he becomes the second or third most powerful man in Germany, depending on who's talking, he wants to do something to sort of promulgate the study of all this crazy stuff that he believes. And so he sets up an organization called the Ahnenerbe, which means ancestral research, basically.
Yeah.
And so the Ancestral Research Institute, the Ahnenerbe, it begins as a sort of quasi-governmental organization. He sets it up in 1935 with a guy named Richard Darré, who is a neo-pagan and at that time Minister for Agriculture in Germany. And those two guys sort of put it together out of, spare change they find lying around the couch. And then as the sort of pressure to create more and more ideological energy behind Nazism builds up, he puts more and more resources into the Ahnenerbe so that they can do more and more to educate the German people. Because, as you know, Himmler knows perfectly well, the average German is not going out and becoming a vegetarian, reincarnating Atlantis believing space alien. They're, saying, yeah, whatever, dude, I'm a Lutheran.
Here's a casserole.
Whatever, dude, I'm a Lutheran. Here's your hot dish. Now go away.
Schnitzel.
And yes, there is sausage in the hot dish.
Of course,
It's not
It's from Vienna.
hot dish. That is crazy talk. Like your Atlantis. But because the sort of the prestige of the Nazi Party is tied up in a lot of this crazy stuff, or in Himmler's mind it is, he has to sort of double down every time, and he figures if he can just get that proof that the Aryan theories are right, he can show those jerks in the Vienna University and America and wherever else that in fact Nazism is not a crazy crank cult, but is in fact the wave of the future, and if everyone just understood about electrical man, this would happen.
Which is what everyone wearing paper bags on their feet is screaming outside of a courthouse.
Exactly. And to his credit, again, one hesitates to give Hitler credit, but he recognizes that this is really bad for the brand.
Yeah.
Hitler wants Nazism to be synonymous with awesome airplanes and tanks that are going to drive over your foes and industry and modern life and parkland and things like that. He doesn't want Nazism to be synonymous with people who smell like soup ranting at each other in a beer hall somewhere. He wants to get past that and move out and sort of set Germany up as sort of the technological wonder world of tomorrow. So when you've got the official Nazi Party Research Institute talking about Atlantis, it's embarrassing. And Hitler, during the Nuremberg rally, not in a low-key speech, talks about how we're not going to find solutions by looking for imaginary giants. We're going to find solutions by, buckling to and getting those tanks built. That's a slap at Himmler. That's a slap at the Ahnenerbe. Yeah. Himmler is forced to purge the crazy guy that he had in charge of the Ahnenerbe and hire a guy with an actual PhD to run it.
Whoops.
So,
yes.
Which is tough.
Yeah, no, apparently not. Apparently, by 1937, if Heinrich Himmler wants a guy to fill a slot, there's applicants.
But there's an interesting irony to that, though, in that in addition to his beliefs, though, Heinrich Himmler was actually really good, really effective and instrumental at building up the SS.
Yeah, he was the guy who made the SS happen. He was the person who said, basically the SS began as Hitler's bodyguard because, again, there was a lot of street fights. There was the recent communist revolution that had taken over Bavaria. There was always the danger that the communists or some other party would take out Hitler just the way that assassins on the right had been taking out, social democrats and communist leaders. So he sets up this bodyguard for Hitler, and because Hitler knows that he can trust Himmler implicitly, right? That he's sort of got that guy's number. Once you're trusted implicitly by the guy in charge, it's pretty easy to build up a power base because you're the only guy who Hitler will allow to build up a power base. And so Himmler builds the SS basically in his own model of slavish devotion to Hitler, because he understands that's the secret to his power, is Hitler always knowing that Himmler is dependable.
So that's why Hitler keeps this guy around.
Yeah, right. And also because, in addition to, crazy stuff, Himmler really is very useful at running the police state. He's got that sort of police state mind. He's a good bureaucrat. He's got, if anything, an over eye for detail, because he's always sending memos about, go out and find every mention of Thor's hammer and send them to me, because I'm pretty sure we could build it.
He was probably a micromanager.
He probably was. And he hired lots of other detail-oriented guys to make sure that the one thing that Hitler really, really thought was a priority would go forward, and that is getting this whole mud people situation solved and killing, first off, isolating, driving away, and then when that becomes impracticable due to the fact that they're at war and you can't just send people out of your country anymore, setting up the concentration camps and killing them.
Yeah. Do you have those THS reports for me?
TPS reports?
If you could just have those Thor's Hammer syndication reports.
I'm going to need all of those Thor's Hammer reports.
That would be great. Yeah.
We're going to have to come in on 1943.
He had a mug that said Reich's best boss.
Yeah.
He did wear glasses.
Glasses. Nerds. Sorry, Ken.
And Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's how
Who's the nerd now?
Now, the worm has turned, Stecco, if that is your real name.
And that's how I get beat up.
Very delicately.
The next half hour
I've
of this
got a cramp.
podcast is just whomp, slap, and whimpering.
Oh, I've hurt my wrist again. Why?
Now, see, and that's just fascinating. That do you think that because he was so effective at running, as you said, the projects that were important to Hitler, that he was just like, all right, if this is this the tax I pay that you have
I mean,
to...
it's like if you've got someone who you're working with very, very closely, they may have one crazy bugbear that they're that they're really into, but as long as you can just let them have that in their off time, you don't really care.
Right.
And they're on side, they're ideologically reliable, or they're reliable in some other way. It's like, well, yeah, sure, he's got a really unhealthy obsession with Selena Gomez, but in every other respect, he's a model employee, that kind of thing.
Not like Stuart over in accounting. His obsession with Selena Gomez, right on the money.
Right on
not
the
too
money.
much, not too little.
Exactly.
He's the
It's
exact
what we'd
amount of
like to see here
dedication
at
to
this-
Selena
at
Gomez.
this corporation. And admittedly, we are Disney, so
Yeah.
it's not as strange
Yeah.
as it sounds.
Get him over here.
Yeah.
Get him. I want to talk to him again. I like the cut of his jib.
That's right. Now, that guy, he's a little obsessed with jib cutting.
Oh, man.
Jib cutting.
A little overboard on the
little
jib
on
cutting.
the jib cutting. Don't like him.
But a guy that's too much on jib cutting, I can work with.
can
It's
work
the people who don't have the passion for jib cuttery.
Right.
No use for them.
They might as well just join the army.
So what kind of projects? I mean, so the Ahnenerbe, I know that in my research I saw that they did go up into Finland, and they were looking at, again, just exactly the same sorts of things. These Aryan and old Scandinavian myths and folklore and witches and songs and I mean, were it not so completely batshit crazy, one could say that it was just a really intense anthropology.
Yeah,
expedition.
the sort of the occult author and occultist Peter Levenda says, imagine the humanities faculty of Oberlin University with guns. That's the Ahnenerbe.
Yeah.
Right. So they have their crazy little ideological beliefs that are pretty much harmless until you let them throw people in jail.
Yeah.
And then trouble ensues. But so they went to Finland to look for old music that would be the kind of music that was played by the ancient Aryans, right? So they figured that Finland, very close to the top of the world, very old culture, not connected to the Slavs in any way. So maybe they've preserved that, ignorantly, because they're not necessarily the Suomi are not Nordic.
Yeah.
Their language, it doesn't fit, but they're at the top of the world. They're up there in the ice.
So close
Maybe
to
something
Russia, so far from Japan.
What a long way from
Oh man, that's 2 episodes. I managed to get that in there now.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Good. On the third, you have to pay royalties.
And that's the end of it.
And so while they were in Finland, they did record an awful lot of music. They got a sort of Finnish traditional instrument,
keyed fiddle.
and then they brought it back, and they took a picture of a local witch after getting her to chant litanies into their wire recorder, and stole her soul and brought that back to Ahnenerbe
I wanted to see that picture because I just imagine they just took it. And she just is like half looking up.
What?
or is that it's the most mundane thing on earth? It's just like a woman with a basket and a babushka just looking. What?
Yeah, and then they brought no, this is a witch.
Yeah,
yeah, we
found
totally took a picture
we
of a
found
witch.
a witch. She was nasty.
That is no. She looks like the cleaning woman at the hotel, but she was
Yeah.
actually very similar to a witch that we took pictures of. And here's our expense account.
This is one of her tricks because when we took the picture, she was in the form of a goat.
Yeah. So some of them was sort of quasi-responsible archaeology. Some of it was just nuts. Some of it was anthropological madness. And the expedition to Tibet, for example, sort of all of those things. Because the guy, Ernst Schaefer, who wants to go to Tibet, he's gone twice with American expeditions. He wants to lead his own expedition. He, by specialty, is an ornithologist and a zoologist. And so he wants to look for animal specialties. But the reason he wants to go looking for animals in Tibet is because he believes that when the world was created, right, at the beginning of sort of biological history, the world would be covered in water. And so Tibet would be the only part sticking up out of the earth that had land on it.
Okay.
So biology must have started on Tibet because otherwise land animals couldn't have evolved, right? And so if you go to Tibet, you will find a vastly larger number of undiscovered biological species because Tibet is where they all came from. It's the cradle of life.
And those that you'll find will be less specialized and more
And-
closer to the initial.
But there will also have been just evolution will have had longer to work in Tibet than anywhere else in the world. So you'll see more different kinds of species. And this is just kissing cousins with the whole Aryan notion that the fifth root race comes down from a magical bridge in space and lands somewhere between Tibet and Outer Mongolia, and that becomes the city at the beginning of the first Aryan city, and that's what Aryan civilization spreads out of. So the notion that Tibet is the cradle of life for Schaefer may have been purely biological in his mind, but it's so close to the mystical belief that when it comes time to get budget money from Himmler,
so be it.
Easy peasy.
he can pass the test with flying colors.
Yeah.
And so he brings along a guy who's
I'll
a...
fund your scientific expedition, but could you downplay the science part for
Could
me?
you keep it more expedition-y, less sciencey? And after the war, of course, that's what Schaefer says is, no, I was just lying about all that stuff. But, at the time, he's not shy. And he takes along a guy who's an expert in geomagnetism, which has military applications, because if you're flying bombing raids over, India, you want to know how the compasses are going to be thrown off. It has scientific application, obviously, because it's just studying the geomagnetic forces of the earth. Mm-hmm. And it has magical and mystic application, because the ley lines... the invisible lines of force that connect powerful vortices and whatnot,
which we've expertly discussed.
Yeah.
The ley lines are a important magical thing. So you bring a guy along, and he's going to geomagnetic surveys of Tibet. Is he a spy? Is he a scientist? Or is he an occultist? And the answer with the Ahnenerbe is at 7 times out of 10, why pick?
Yeah, stop. You're both right.
That's right. Multitasking is the key to efficiency. And they brought along a guy named Bruno Beger, who was a physical anthropologist who wanted to measure Tibetan skulls to see if any of them were Aryan. Because one thing they knew about Tibet, lots of swastikas down there.
Yeah, true.
And anyone who's that fond of the swastikas got to be Aryan, because it's our magic soul symbol.
Yeah.
We read it in a book. Got to be
probably
true.
cool with us. They use our gang symbols.
And so they would go to, Tibet and start measuring people's skulls. And Bruno Beger is the guy who eventually is put in charge of a project to measure the skulls of as many Jews as he can, so that Himmler can have, in black and white, a way to figure out who's a Jew and who isn't. Because turns out people don't always tell the truth when the option is Auschwitz.
What?
It's crazy, I know.
So from Tibet, then where does the Ahnenerbe take us? Where do we go next on Ahnenerbe Crazy Ass Airlines?
Well, I mean, the Ahnenerbe go all kinds of different places, and to one extent or another, they have to sort of stop screwing around during the war because they can't be flying to places through British airspace.
On account of there being a war.
On account of there being a war. There is an Ahnenerbe archaeologist who winds up as the intelligence officer of the 1st Viking SS Division, and is going around Russia looting museums of artifacts and sending them back to Berlin while fighting on the Eastern Front.
P.S. Coolest unit patches in the entire Reich.
Yeah.
The Viking SS.
The Viking SS, yes.
Wow.
Viking Division. And
Axes and horned helms.
so it's sort of like Indiana Jones with tanks, this guy.
Yeah.
So they go all kinds of places, but they have to sort of dial back big goals. They had a big expedition to Bolivia that was planned that they didn't get to do. They probably didn't get to go to Ethiopia, although you'll get different answers about that. And again, it's only very recently we found out that the Ahnenerbe did anything, because those records were sort of, boxed away with crazy shit the Nazis did, and most people sort of stop with, I don't know, World War II and the Holocaust. It's like,
right.
that'll keep you busy for a
enough.
while.
Yeah. Crazy enough.
But
There's this old box marked Scheisse, though. What is it?
what should that be? But it wasn't until the 70s that a German scholar named Michael Cater did a doctoral dissertation on the Ahnenerbe, and that sort of brought it out, and people are finding more and more evidence of various Ahnenerbe activities. So we don't know fully what all they were getting up to, and to what extent they were working through other groups like the Frobenius Institute, which was a German anthropology
Sounds
institute.
made up.
It does, doesn't it?
I worked with the Frobenius Institute.
Yes, we're the
I've got a clipboard, so you should probably just let me in.
sausage king of Stuttgart.
Exactly.
Abe Frobenius. Yeah, or the sort of the German version of the National Geographic Society that they would sort of bring Ahnenerbe guys along on those things.
They fell on hard times and couldn't afford to keep putting out their magazines, so then they became a German porn mag called the Fraubenius Institute. Yeah!
That doesn't count.
Oh, that sucks because that's a really good one. Damn it. Oh, man. I'm disappointed in myself. I should have sat on that
Should
one.
have saved it.
Yep.
Clip and save.
Damn it. Okay, so sorry, Ken, keep going.
And they wanted to go to the Canary Islands and look for Atlantis there, but Franco was trying to stay out of World War II, so he wasn't going to let the Ahnenerbe do it. But he sent his guy from the Spanish Antiquities Organization, whatever it was, CSOS, was sent down to dig around and see if there was anything the Nazis might like that he could bring back. And Franco also had a number of castles in Spain that are connected one way or the other to the Templars. And since Himmler was a big Templar fan, when Himmler came down to visit Spain for a treaty negotiation, they sort of took him on a tour through these castles in Spain, where, among other things, Roland had smote the Moors at the Battle of Roncesvalles. And so there was a question, well, if we could find Roland's horn, that would be awesome. And, of course, the notion that the Holy Grail might have been in one of those castles, because Saragossa sounds an awful lot like Saris, which is the island the Holy Grail is on in the Lay of Galahad. And Montserrat, which is a different monastery in Spain, sounds like Montsalvat, which is where the Grail is kept in Wolfram of Eschenbach's Parsifal, which, of course, is the basis of Wagner's opera Parsifal, which Hitler thought was the greatest thing in the universe. So you can see Himmler thinking, Hitler doesn't like magic, but he likes Parsifal. So if I can get my hands on the Holy
like
Grail,
magic, isn't it?
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And so there was a sort of a ongoing, anything you find that might interest the Ahnenerbe, just shoot it past them. So we don't know what the Ahnenerbe necessarily was doing. Himmler had another guy on his staff who was sort of part of the Ahnenerbe and sort of not. He was part of Hitler's general staff. The Ahnenerbe was part of Hitler's general staff. Whether or not this guy, Otto Rahn, worked for the Ahnenerbe is sort of a paperwork question. It's like, the Nazi director of personnel would have said, well, I don't know. He's sort of a part-time, he's a contractor, but he also gets some insurance. I think it's a Cobra. I'm not sure how that works.
I get paperwork from him sometimes.
I fill out the W-9.
Right. What we have to do is get him to fill out all the forms correctly, and then we can go back and rehire him at his previous salary.
Oh, Germans.
And so Otto Rahn was this guy who had spent much of the 1920s wandering around France, looking into the ruins and remains of the Cathars, who I'm sure you've already dodged past in previous episodes.
No.
We've dodged past them so much we haven't even talked about them.
Yeah, we've dodged past them perfectly.
Well, real fast, the Cathars were a Gnostic heresy that was extirpated by the Catholic Church in the south of France in the mid to late 13th century in a crusade known as the Albigensian Crusade, because Albi was where their heresy in France sort of kicked off, hence Albigensian, born in Albi. So the Cathars believed that the world was the mankind was a spiritual electrical being that had no connection to the filth of the world, that the goal of humanity was to separate themselves from that world and be perfected, literally made perfecti, by asceticism. And if you couldn't do that, since any human contact was debasing, non-procreative sex was the only kind of sex you should be having, because otherwise you're bringing more souls into this horrible world. And so they became synonymous with buggery and sodomy and all manner of other ill behavior.
Buggery. That's
wow.
That just right. You know what? I can't even. That's T-ball, and I won't have it.
Yeah.
I'm better than that.
You're better than that? Okay, fair enough. It's good to see you walk away. Sometimes a man's just got to walk away, Dave.
Well, yeah.
But the notion of the Cathars believing these very similar Gnostic beliefs to the sort of Theosophy type beliefs inspired a lot of Germans to think, oh, maybe the Cathars were in on this Theosophy thing, and they're connected to the electrical space alien people who are awesome super Aryans.
Yeah.
And maybe the reason the French killed them is because they were jealous that they were more pure. Again,
Just
they're
like the
sort of
French.
obsessed with the
It's
pure.
so like them.
It's so like them. So Otto Rahn thinks the Cathars may have been the guys who had the Holy Grail, that they're the people who had the Grail, keeping it away from corrupting human influence, right? That Mont Salvat in Parsifal's poem is Mont Segur, the Cathar fortress, the last Cathar fortress to fall. So he goes and he looks around in Mont Segur for the Holy Grail, and he writes a book called Crusade Against the Grail, in which he sets out his theory about the Cathars. And Himmler sees that book and says, boom, that's the book that we want.
Nailed it.
Because he's got it going on. So he hires Otto Rahn to sort of look for the Grail for him and to write another book. And Rahn sort of, to me as a writer, it looks very much like he cashed the advance and then said, oh, no.
Okay.
Crap. I don't know what to write now.
Scheiße.
And so the next book that he writes, which is called The Court of Lucifer, Lucifer being the good guy, because Lucifer is the guy fighting against bad old god of filthy earth. And so the Court of Lucifer is the Court of the Grail. And he goes around to a bunch of places sort of looking for the Grail, looking for remnants of Gnostic duology, and sort of talking about his own emotional response to the landscape. And it's very much the sort of, when I got to Iceland, I realized that in Iceland, I was looking only for the spark within myself. That kind of thing.
See, maybe that's a German thing, because that's very Werner Herzog.
There's a little bit of the Herzog narrator in Otto Rahn's books.
As we journeyed forth, I found that I was seeking not from without, but from within.
It was at this point that the eternal chaos recurred and destroyed my only beliefs. And that's the sort of book that his second book is. And so he's on the Ahnenerbe nickel, and he has not, as far as we know, found the Grail. Although, dun dun dun, there is the rumor that he found the Grail, sort of marked it down on his little Grail map, and then kept it hidden and secret, and that it may have been found by the Nazis after he died, or did he die, in 1939. Otto Rahn, a skilled mountaineer, very capable outdoorsman, climbs a mountain in Austria in spring of 1939 and allegedly freezes to death. And
convenient.
And the Nazi party, the Völkischer Beobachter, publishes an obituary for him a month after. And that's it. They're like, lost in Austria, our good Nazi buddy, SS Oberlieutenant Otto Rahn. Everyone shed a tear. Now you have teared. That is all.
Now you have teared.
Moving on.
Moving on. And so there's a lot of theories, right? There's the theory that Otto Rahn was beginning to say, I don't much like this Himmler fellow. He seems icky. And was trying to figure out a way to resign from the SS, and realized that the way you resign from the SS is you go up a mountain and don't come back down.
Blood in, blood out.
Exactly. The Cathar Perfecti, their final sacrament was to commit suicide by letting their blood out and ending all connection to the physical world that way, right? All the polluting blood that makes you want to have procreative sex and stuff. Just get all that out of you.
I always just blame my penis, but I guess it's the blood.
Well, a lot of people think.
I blame girls for not taking a chance.
That's right. Why can't they give a nice occultist and Bigfoot hunter a chance ever? They're always with those jerks with their Atlantis and their fedora. Hate that guy. But so the theory is that he may have committed Cathar suicide up there on the mountain, and that's what happened to him. Another theory is that Himmler got sick of paying for stupid, terrible books and just had him whacked and made up the story about the mountain entirely. Another theory is, and this is an awesome theory that I swear to God I did not make up.
Oh, this is going to be so good.
Oh, it is. They faked his death and gave him a new identity as a man named Rudolf Rahn. And Rudolf Rahn becomes the German ambassador to Vichy, Syria, and then to Vichy, Tunis, and then the German ambassador to Italy, and then after the war becomes the head of Coca-Cola in Europe.
Goosh.
What?
And the notion that the Ahnenerbe SS officer who discovered the Holy Grail wound up making Coca-Cola in Europe may be the greatest thing that I've ever discovered in my entire career of looking for Nazi stuff.
That is magnificent.
Yes. Now, there is the slight fact that Rudolf Rahn's pre-1939 past is fairly well documented.
Yeah.
Which can be gotten over if you've got the whole resources of the SS.
That's true.
Just saying. The fact that he doesn't look an awful lot like Otto Rahn in photographs, That's just plastic surgery.
Right.
Or maybe, the rigors of mountaineering.
Yeah.
We don't know that. You don't know that.
I mean, I would think that the blood of Christ tastes like Coke.
I saw what the Ark
Once
of the
it's poured into
Covenant.
the Grail, it does.
I saw what the Ark of the Covenant did to a German guy's face. So I imagine that the Grail
Yeah.
will at least, mess with your nose a little.
It'll teach the world to sing, my friend.
Well played. Okay, so now that we've got
Otto Rahn out of the picture.
Are there any other possible outcomes for the Grail aside from sweet, delicious Coca-Cola, the taste of America?
Well, the other possibility is that whether Ron was forced to reveal the location of the Grail before being
Other
whacked.
possibility, singular. Either that happened or what you're about to say happened.
Well, they could have both happened.
That's true.
Right. Either he's forced to reveal the location of the Grail before being whacked, or he reveals it voluntarily because he's a Nazi.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't know he's going to be whacked.
Who doesn't know he's going to be whacked, or doesn't know he's going to be turned into a guy named Rudolph.
Yeah, nobody ever
Doesn't
sees
know
that
any
coming.
of that stuff. Doesn't. You would be surprised how few people, when they wake up and they're Rudolph, they're like, I totally knew that.
Oh, they Rudolph me.
We got Rudolph dog.
I wrote that in my diary. If I suddenly become Rudolph,
Yeah.
I totally called it. I totes called it.
I can't believe that Gypsy was right.
Why? Why do I keep going back to her? Madam Blavatsky, it's you. So the notion that the Nazis knew where the Grail was and were just sort of waiting for the right moment to unleash it.
They waited too long.
But just a bit. But Otto Skorzeny, the sort of Nazi Errol Flynn, the guy who rescued Mussolini, he's the guy who dressed his men up in American uniforms and sent them into the Battle of the Bulge to sow confusion. The guy who set up Odessa, Mr. Nazi badass himself, Otto Skorzeny, is in the south of France in September and October of 1944, right, doing commando operations.
Yeah. General
That also
Skullduggery.
happens to be the anniversary, the 700th anniversary of the fall of Montségur, is late 1944, which fell in 1244 to the Albigensian Crusaders. So at that point, right, you get the notion that maybe Ron is like, they buried the Grail, and only on the anniversary of the day of its burial does the light beam come down out of the heavens
fully
and point the way
Indiana
to the
Jones.
Exactly, total Indiana Jones it. Skorzeny is waiting for that moment, goes in, takes the Grail out of Montségur, where it has been buried, and brings it back to Germany. Now, of course, D-Day has happened, America's in the fight, trouble is a-brewing, and whatever the power of the Grail is, it may just be to make delicious Coca-Cola. It may not actually be to, smite the Russians. The very few Grail
That's a
myths
letdown.
involve smiting the Russians, apparently. Yeah. And so whatever the Grail's powers are, they're not sufficient to turn the tide. Or maybe the Grail is like, did you skip the part where I'm holy? Yeah. Because it's in the name, Holy Grail. And so they're like, damn, why do we keep doing that?
Why couldn't we find the nefarious Grail?
Yes, why don't we
That
start
was
looking for
stupid.
evil artifacts? Wouldn't that make more sense now that I think of it.
Hindsight.
Hindsight. It's 2020. And so the Grail then is smuggled out of Germany at the end of the war by Skorzeny's Odessa operation and taken to the Antarctic refuge where the Nazis removed all of their secret weapons.
Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, where they wait until this very day to,
Yes.
to release
That's
their...
right. Their UFOs and Bigfoots and such are all down there.
Man, their Bigfoot army is so awesome.
It is.
If anyone comes at the U.S. with a Bigfoot army, I'm switching sides.
You're switching sides.
Instantly.
Oh, see, you can't be broadcasting that because now they've got you. They know that you're a weak link. They'll start weighing on you.
That means that there's going to be Bigfoot commandos because they're listening to this and they're like, oh, we need to get that guy out of there. We're going to come get him.
Yeah.
I want to be
He's
rescued.
a good asset.
Yeah, I want to be rescued by Bigfoot commandos.
Well, I don't know. I just
Does
saying.
that wait, but see, now I'm a Nazi. I don't want to be a Nazi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
that's right,
but
man.
that's what happens when you
What a
start saying
conflict.
Oh, man.
just because people have got their Yeti buddies from the
What a comp.
fourth root race.
Okay, that is a comp. No, okay. I'm going to stick with the US of A, even though it breaks my heart to set myself against an army of Bigfoots.
Well, maybe we'll have our own Bigfoots. Maybe it'll be Bigfoot versus Bigfoot.
Bigfoot
I
v.
think-
Bigfoot.
I think there's
Hitler
brother
versus
versus
Otto
brother.
Rahn.
I think there's a Bigfoot gap right now.
on the battlefield at Gettysburg. They will,
Yeah.
Gettysburg.
Oh,
Jesus.
well done.
Yeah.
That counts. That counts.
Yeah, we'll take it.
That was brilliant.
Gosh.
Gettysburg. Oh, there's a reason you're on this podcast, Ken.
That's right.
I respect that. That is just fascinating, though. I had no idea that there was that much of like a regular effort put into it. Like you almost just think that it's kind of made up because you can just pin anything on Nazis. No one's going to say boo about it. But they were really researching this.
Once the Nazis have rejected sort of the Western consensus, there's
Sky's
no
the
bottom
limit.
that well, right?
Yeah.
And again, part of it is because the Ahnenerbe very much is created in Himmler's image. He builds it because he's got dictatorial power over all of Germany, and he's like, you know what I want? A bunch of guys to find out about Atlantis for me. Make that happen.
Yeah, he gets to pursue with military force his hobby.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like if he was a model train collector, that's what they would have had. They would have had an institute devoted to building tiny trains. Which, in fact, I don't want to say right here that they did not.
Yeah, I'm not saying that didn't happen. That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Well,
that's and we just barely scratched the surface of this stuff. We got a good basis for kind of what ingredients were thrown into the old pot, and then the nice meal that cooks up is the war, which we didn't even get to.
yeah.
Really.
So if you think that's the last you've heard from Ken Hite, then you're wrong and you're dumb.
Stupid.
You
God.
son of a bitch.
What's wrong with you?
Just get out. You know what? Well, I don't even know why we're doing this podcast anymore. I'm
let's
fed
just
up with
stop.
it.
Let's just
We
stop.
quit. Oh, I can't stay mad at you. Come here, you.
Who wants ice cream?
Kenneth Hite, I cannot thank you enough for agreeing to be on here, and I hope that I can somehow convince you to do it again.
Well, now that Dave has said ice cream,
Yes.
That does help
it
things.
doesn't hurt.
Boosh.
Let's put it that way.
Well, we have to get some top rate puns out of this thing.
Oh, yeah, we do. And God, I am furious that I burned a German porno mag pun.
Sorry, man.
God! That's okay. I do have one that actually lends credence to one of the theories about the Holy Grail is that there was an attempt to make the changeover when Otto changed his identity in the 50s. There was an attempt to kind of draw attention to that by Chubby Checker in his song "Ron Ron Rudolph" was actually spelled R-O-N. It was about Rudolph Rahn.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
that's what you got right there. That's the hill you're gonna die on.
I blew my German porno mag pun too soon, and
Yeah, well, that'll happen with German porno mags. You'll blow too soon.
God, yeah, that'll get you. So yeah, it was a Ron Rudolph.
Gotcha.
Shit, man, I'm gonna get so beat up now. Everyone, Ken, you might not be aware of this, but Flora and I bitterly compete. We pretend that we're cool about it, but we really do compete on these puns. And man, I'm gonna get taken out to the woodshed on this one.
You just struck out playing softball.
I really did. There's so much, and that's the best I could do. You do your pun, and I'm gonna come up with another
All right.
one.
I have to come up with another one too, because this one.
I'm gonna come up with an Otto Rahn. I'm just fucked. I can't do it.
Better than the first.
Oh,
Well, okay. I have a nice place that you can go up in the mountains. You can get out your poles. You can get out the snowboard. You can get out there on the slopes. It's Madam Blavatsky Resort.
oh, all right. I mean, you're winning. There's no question.
I think I could have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
this-
this is AAA ball at its best.
Yeah. You're the toughest guy in the cripple fight. I hope you're proud of yourself.
You're easily the best third baseman in France.
Oh, guten Tag. Do you like the traveling? Maybe you also enjoy the histories. Then maybe you can join us at the Ahnenerbe Air, where we are flying around the world to research histories and mysteries. Ahnenerbe Air.
It's not even a pun.
It's a product.
It's just a silly voice.
No, it's a product. Ahnenerbe Air is
Lots of nuts.
Everyone,
Lots of nuts.
everyone gets all the nuts they can handle.
yeah. No, see, that's my out. If I can't come up with a pun, I do a product instead.
The rules to this game are are intricate and seem,
and malleable.
Yeah.
seem primarily devised to keep Stecco in it at all.
Yeah, sometimes instead of a pun, I'll just not do a pun and then say I did one. It's a clever ruse.
My butt. That's why. Yeah, for a 9-year-old, Dave is really impressive. I mean, you guys listening can't tell, but Dave literally is 9.
Yeah.
So just cut him some slack, people.
Shut up, Mom.
To sit up on the phone book to record.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
And sometimes I say bad words.
There's no clear winner in this one.
No, there is. It's Ken Hite.
Yeah,
Kenneth Hite was winning.
There's no clear first loser in this one.
No, there's.
I have a product too, actually. Mine's a product that may not be the first choice or the main player in your diet, in your dieting needs, trying to trim down a little bit, but it gets stuff done in a quite a weird way. It's called Heinrich Himmler.
Oh, that's not bad.
There's no slogan for this.
I've got.
The trouble is there's a lot of slogans for this, and they're all horrible.
Okay, well, what about this? What about a German pro wrestler? The Heinrich Himmler.
Heinrich Maneuver.
He's the Heinrich Himmler. Hammerer.
Hammer.
This. There's nothing funny about Nazis, guys.
Stop it. If Hogan's Heroes has taught us nothing, it's that there's nothing funny about Nazis.
Oh, man.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks again, Ken.
Thank you, Ken, for coming in.
Oh, thanks very much for the invitation.
We'll absolutely have you on again. And also, you can hear
Always
Kenneth
happy to
Hite.
do it.
Not only can you hear him in your mind when you read his books, but you can
Not
hear,
only. Or anytime, really.
but you can hear him with your ears on his podcast. Ken and Robin talk about stuff.
That's right. Fellow game designer and author Robin Laws and I have a podcast. Ken and
No,
Robin
you're
talk
an
about
author and
stuff.
game designer. He's a game designer and author. Is that correct?
I think it goes the other way around.
Damn it.
All right.
I think he's author and game designer. Or writer and game designer, and I'm game designer and writer. Kenneth Hite.
But it's a terrific podcast. It's on iTunes. It is free as air, and it is awesome.
It's nice. And don't forget, Ken's next book is coming out, The Nazi Occult, from Osprey Publishing, coming out on June 18th.
I'm going to pre-order mine.
Yeah, man. Go to Amazon. It's on Amazon.
Yes,
You
yes,
can
it
go
is.
and
Is there a better place to
pre-order.
get it than Amazon?
I assume that the Osprey, if the Osprey has a web store, that would probably be a better place because my beloved publishers get a little more of the money. But
Yeah.
There you
other
go.
than that, Amazon is totally acceptable. Everyone loves to buy from Amazon.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't?
Nazi Yetis.
That's right.
Jerks.
Great. So awesome. This has been really fun. It's
this
our
was
first
awesome.
interview, and
And we didn't
been a
make
good
any.
time.
Nobody cried.
Not yet. So
Gonna.
Nobody cried on air.
Yeah.
You guys didn't hear like the 10 minutes of sobbing we had to cut out in the middle.
True.
you're welcome. So go on to blurryphotos.org. Find those chiclets so that you can like us on Facebook, so that you can follow us on Twitter, blurry_photos. Go on to our YouTube page and subscribe, and we'll try to get more stuff up there soon. Go stumble upon us somehow, and go to iTunes, subscribe, rate us, all that good stuff. And send us some puns. Write us in.
Yeah. If you think you're so tough. Also, let's keep the. I don't know why I'm so adversarial about it.
Oh, I know exactly why you're so adversarial. Same reason North Korea is adversarial about stuff.
I'm just spoiling for a fight.
I'm hopelessly outclassed and eating dirt. No.
But also send us your recommendations. Is there a topic you think we should cover? I'd like to hear about it.
And now, the time has come.
Oh, we have earned this for 6 long and grueling weeks.
It's time to crown a champion
Oh, winner, a lady among ladies.
for the
2013 Miss Cryptid Contest. I gotta be honest, I'm really glad to, in my heart, know that's the last time I'll be doing that.
true story. Though this episode's not over yet.
True.
So, you guys,
You ready?
we have tallied the votes.
Yep. This is the first time I know, speaking, who the winner is. This is the
Yep.
first time this has happened.
And mostly because this was such a close race.
Oh my gosh. Last second, Hail Mary.
Yeah, everything was a dead heat going into recording tonight. And, oh man, it's crazy by one vote.
Yep.
One
vote. One
beautiful
man made
lady.
a difference.
All right, so runner-up.
And if our elegant winner cannot maintain the duties, responsibilities, and privileges of her office, then the runner-up will be forced to, in a steel cage match, physically subdue Ms. Cryptid and pry the golden crown from her head.
And the golden goatman from her hand.
That's right.
/ claw. Our runner-up is actually decided by me and Dave because
Yeah.
everyone's tied.
Yeah, everyone
except for
else-
the winner.
Everyone else gets to vote for the winner, so we get to vote for the runner-up.
The runner-up is the Oswald.
Oh yes, thank you, Asswag. Also, I'd like to point out something. Now we haven't really discussed. We've mentioned it, but we never told tales that each week Mr. Flora and I would select 2 cryptids, and I am very pleased to announce that I win. 3 out of the 4
Yep.
selected cryptids were cryptids that I had selected.
Selected cryptids.
Did you guys enjoy that? It was like an entire sentence was a palindrome.
I went through such a journey with you. Yeah, you beat me 3-1.
Yep.
3 of your guys. You had some sexy beasts in there.
All right, enough of the bullshit.
The cryptids that we have left
Where
are the Bat Squatch,
Yep.
the Honey Island Swamp Monster,
Yep. The Chon Chon.
and the Chon Chon. So your winner and new champion is the Bat Squatch.
It's a flapping purple creature. It's got as many as much of a 50-foot wingspan, dude.
It's just getting bigger.
It is an amazing flying purple hominid Bigfoot.
Yeah. Congratulations, Bat Squatch. And
Oh,
also, in my opinion, a dark horse in this one.
Right? Really? Yeah.
He came out of nowhere to win this competition.
And which is funny because all the cryptids come out of nowhere. Oh man! So thank you all for voting. Thank you all for caring, and for everyone who voted for Bat Squatch, who never gave up hope. I want you to give yourselves a little pat in the back and say, "Hey, man, I know quality when I see
You
it."
made a difference. You made a difference in
Yeah.
that poor cryptid's life.
For all you Chon Chon lovers, nothing.
Sorry, guys.
Maybe next year.
We'll have to figure out if cryptids can reapply or not, or if it's a one-shot deal.
I don't know. You know, this is kind of the thing we usually figure out off the mics, but I think it's fun to do it on the mics. Does the winner get to return to defend her
I don't
crown?
know. Oh, man.
I think she does. That's
Might
what I
have
think.
to. Yeah, might have to. Well, it's interesting. Again, a dark horse for me.
Yeah.
I thought for sure the Oswald was going to take it.
Me too. I really did too. Although there was the vocal Chon Chon. You know what I don't understand? This like quiet milling Honey Island swamp monster support.
Still like garnering votes and
Yeah.
it was real. I think it won its week hands down too.
Right.
Which maybe that goes to say the quality of what it was up against that week. But
Maybe, but
I don't know. I think
it's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
very surprised because you don't hear anybody mention it. I get tweets and texts about Chon Chons and asswings, and I've never heard anyone mention it. The Honey Island swamp monster.
well,
So,
congratulations again, Bat Squatch. And now comes the fun part.
we're not done congratulating just yet.
Yeah, we set up this little fun bucket to honor you, the listener,
That's right.
for participating.
And the time has come for us to select a listener.
From the sweepstakes that we asked you to participate in, and you did so wholeheartedly.
If grudgingly.
Every week that you voted, you earned a vote.
Do you hear this sound? It's a fez filled with crisp pieces of paper with your names on them.
Yep.
All you voters.
So we're gonna pull one out here. We're gonna say the first name. We're not gonna give away all your secrets. You need some of them.
Yep, we'll protect your anonymity.
But you will also get an email from us during the week here, and we'll contact you, get some information, and then we'll send you a bunch of fun shit.
And also, just so that everyone knows how great we are, we're totally going to take a picture of the prize package before it goes in the mail.
Sure.
I mean, you have to know that there's some real stuff happening. So here we go. I'm
All right.
candy craning it right now.
Here we go.
Do you hear all this great Foley work here? Oh, that's sex. That's worse than mouth sounds.
Nothing's worse than mouth sounds.
That's true.
All right, so here we go. We have
got
chosen a name.
Ooh, it's folded in half like a ballot.
So let's find out who wins.
The winner is Dave Stecco. Yay! I'm a winner! Woo! Oh, thank you everybody for trying, but it looks like I won. Man, thank you. I'm very excited, and it's just a rush. It's just fun to be a part of it.
I just punched my straw hat.
No,
Nope.
I was lying. It's not me.
Just kidding.
The
Psych.
winner was our listener, Emerson.
Emerson.
You're a winner.
Congratulations.
You are a huge winner.
You are going to hear from us soon. It's yours,
Yeah.
and we'll get all that taken care of. So congratulations.
Yeah, you deserve it. You've earned it. Thank you for voting. And if you don't want the prize pack, we'll never speak of this again.
Brushed under the carpet.
That's right.
Great. So again, thanks everybody. 2013 Miss Cryptid Contest was a lot of fun. We had a blast doing it.
We learned a lot.
Learned a lot about ourselves. Learned a lot about you. Learned a lot about cryptids.
Learned a lot about Charles Barkley.
I'm Charles Barkley.
Oh man,
Bat stinks.
Bad Stinks wins.
Good job. Good job. I feel like the ref gave Bat Stinks this one, but he played a hell of a game anyway. I'm Charles Barkley.
Oh man. Well, there it is.
There
That's
you
it.
go. Come to a close.
From atop our lofty perch at Podcast Mountain, we can finally bid you a good evening.
Yep. So for this episode of Blurry Photos, I have been Madam David Blavatsky.
Oh, really well done. And I am David, the spark being Stecco.
Bye.